This is episode 49 of the Fire Protection Podcast, powered by InspectPoint. Today, my guest is Scott MacRitchie of LVX Global. His brand, the brand under LVX Global, is FireM. Scott has been fire protection for a long time, the contractor end, worked for a manufacturer. FireM is on the IoT side of things in fire protection. LVX is in a bunch of different industries, but FireM is obviously specific to fire protection. And they're really breaking through with some technology regarding grabbing data from fire alarm panels. And I didn't even know this. They're coming out with some suppression IoT down the road here. So there'll be at NFPA conference next week at I think it's booth 442 in Las Vegas. So appreciate Scott coming on. Yeah, we got into IoT side and kind of Scott's background and the pain points from the fire alarm distributor side as well as the building owner and end user side. So yeah, real excited to chat about IoT. I know I did a recent podcast with Fire Connect on this, is kind of putting it all together, right? But onto the podcast, and thanks for all the subscriptions and liking the podcast. Yeah, fire protection, you don't know, I think my boss at Tyco said, he's like 6 months in, you think you know a lot, and then you get to a year, and you're like, oh man, I didn't know anything back 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Then it goes another year. I mean, you said 18 months to know fire protection. I don't know. I think it's longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, fire protection acronyms were always the biggest problem that I ran into because I went to school to be a teacher, and when I got into fire protection, the terminology it took me forever because nothing felt natural to me. I went from something that wasn't mechanical at all. I went from just a totally different situation. So entering into, I mean, we're going to NFPA next week, right?
Right.
What does NFPA mean?
Yeah, right.
You get the most basic things, because in our day-to-day, we say so many different things that I'm sure someone on the outside goes, guys, I don't know what that means. Like, I try to talk to my wife about our industry, and she still introduces me to people, and she goes, this is my husband. I don't know what he does. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of people that have spouses in the industry, because
they look up a lot when they walk into a building.
Yeah, they look up a lot. They say acronyms I don't know. They're obsessed with knowing that there's pressure on the hand portable under our sink a lot of times. There's just a bunch of really funny things that we do that I'm sure I'm sure other industries have their own idiosyncrasies, but I always feel a little bit on the outside when I get into parties and bars and situations where I'm introducing myself and I say, I do fire protection. And they're like, oh, cool, man, you're a firefighter. Nah,
yeah, right.
Not that cool. Not that cool, but
Well, I know we just started. I just started recording because it's I like having just us talking. So
yeah,
Scott, you want to introduce the audience to
True.
yourself? I'll do an intro to this, but I've known you for a bunch of years now. So
yep.
introduce the audience to yourself and a little bit about you and your background and who you work for now.
Okay, sounds good. So my name is Scott MacRitchie, and I currently work for FireM, a universal gateway to fire panels. Been with them for a little over a year now. Went to go work for them after about 8 years at FireTrace International as one of their sales managers, as a regional. Worked in a global capacity for a few years during COVID and the pandemic, which was a fun introduction to global sales in the first place. And then before that, I was with an API-owned company called Davis Ulmer Sprinkler Company, which Drew, I know Steve Ulmer, and that group up there. So I think that's originally how we started talking at NAFED a couple of years ago in the first place. So about 12, 13 years in in fire
So how
protection.
did you get it at Davis Ulmer?
Yeah, wild situation. So, Steve Ulmer was always a family friend, and
Okay.
this goes back to the industry things. When I was growing up and I knew him, we'd always say, "Hey, Steve Ulmer does sprinklers." My dad and him went to high school together, so in my mind, I was like, "Oh, sprinklers." So I'm thinking outdoor, I'm thinking
Right.
irrigation, but after going to, funny enough, a Buffalo Bills game and talking to him a little bit about what they did, it just kind of rolled downhill because I was getting out of school
Sure.
and I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. I knew that I needed to try something different. And Steve won me over pretty quickly and went to go work for Davis Ulmer as a kind of do it all kind of
Yeah.
guy, just to get to
Yeah.
know the industry and things like that. So,
That's
it's,
great.
yeah, it's a weird
Funny
a
way,
weird,
funny
weird
way you
industry.
start, right? Everybody kind of doesn't know about fire protection, unless obviously you go to school at the WPI or Worcester or come up through
Oklahoma,
firefighting.
or,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But I think majority of the industry kind of just fall on it and never leave. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's not one of those industries where you're 10, 11, 12 years old and go, fire protection. I'm going to get into the system side of fire protection. I
right.
wanted to be a pro baseball player. I want to be this, I want to be that. But fire protection is usually a found industry.
Yeah. It's crazy. This is I'm almost to my 20th anniversary of fire protection.
Wow.
It's crazy.
20
Yeah.
years, 20 years. Leave and not leaving anytime soon is what it seems like.
No, no, not anytime soon. I like what I'm doing. So, um, well, Scott, I wanted to have you on. Obviously, we have NFPA coming up next week. I'll get this
Yeah,
released ASAP, probably during the show.
great.
We'll launch it. So let's get into NFPA conference and all of that toward the
Yep.
end. But wanted to learn a little bit about um, obviously LVX Global and FireM, but and just I guess what those solutions currently are, and then I've got a bunch of stuff slated to ask you. So
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'll start with the LVX Global. So LVX Global, first and foremost, is a smart infrastructure company. So from a fire protection perspective, it's always been a small corner of smart infrastructure and the data that comes out of these buildings. But it's kind of the forgotten trade when it comes to, and this, we were just talking about you hiring someone from HVAC and things like that. It's just not the first set of points that is integrated into a platform, even though it's safety, which is kind of wild coming from, obviously we're in fire protection, so we think about it as being the first piece of the importance of smart infrastructure. So LVX Global has been involved, in things like lighting and energy and HVAC and all these other data points in the buildings. So a few years ago, when FireM, the company that's LVX, FireM is a brand of LVX,
mhm,
the product was invented, it was a natural transition into the umbrella and a good starting point for us to look at these different platforms that are hosting data, because
right,
we don't think of fire protection as data very often. We think of it as, I come for Davis Ulmer sprinkler. It's pipe, it's water, it's got to work. We're driven by code. It's all these things. But data, what about it is data? And of course, the fire alarm side has been doing a lot of this with the information that comes out of those panels for a
sure,
while, with Central Station and what comes out of the printer ports and things like that. But in terms of FireM and what we do transitioning into this product, it's more about taking as many of those points that happen in the fire panel, whether it's during an inspection, whether it's during service, even installation and commissioning. There's a
right,
bunch of really minute details that come out of these panels that get kind of lost. And if you don't have a way of collecting, aggregating, interpreting all this information, then there's a whole lot of insights that you would miss out on. So
right,
FireM kind of takes all of the details that you would miss in a contact ID central station situation, and we put it into a much more usable format, a usable interface, and frankly, just make it accessible.
right.
So if long introduction, that's going to be my
No,
go-to
no.
mode,
And
but
for anybody listening that doesn't kind of understand, this is a fire alarm solution. Essentially, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong at any
Yeah.
point, but um, there are millions of fire alarm panels out there. The newer fire alarm panels obviously have the ability to do some of this, but
Mhm.
majority, 85+%, are the older style panels where
Yep.
they're not going anywhere because the building's not going anywhere. You're not going to retrofit those that easily. So you have the ability, and service providers and fire protection contractors are doing inspections and service and retrofits on these all the time. So I think what you're able to do is connect to a lot of these, uh, I guess, I don't want to say antique panels, but just like older panels, right? That
Legacy.
and yeah, legacy panels, and grab data from them, right?
Yep. Yeah. So one of our big mantras is upgrading what's in place. So being a part of, we're a big part of Smart Cities Council, which is all about taking, buildings and making smarter decisions with the data that comes out of them. And a huge part of what we push is don't replace your panel if there's nothing wrong with it, and you're
Right.
looking for we call them modern features, right? And I have to laugh at the idea of a modern feature being a connected IoT service. Because if you look at our houses, you look at everything around us, it's all connected to the internet in some capacity. My dishwasher can tell me when it's finished. So the fact that a fire alarm panel now is just starting to move into this world of IoT is it's
It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
well, and one of the things that I know that we'll talk about a little bit more is the workforce and things like that. But as we have Gen Z and millennials getting more cemented into the fire protection industry, the thing that I hear from them most often is, you're telling me this wasn't available 10 years ago? And we have to politely explain to them, there's listings, there's process, there's interpretation, there's a lot of things that go into it. But it's adding modern features to panels that are in the field. And honestly, Drew, there are some manufacturers that are looking to us to be that option, to be that
Right.
connected piece as well. Because
Oh, wow.
it's a different going from manufacturing panels to being a connected IoT device. It's a different type of R&D.
Yep.
And you know this from the software side, software development and getting connection and analyzing data. It's not the same as the years of developing panels and boards and notification
Oh,
appliances and
yeah.
things like that.
You can
So
move faster. You can move so much faster on the software side.
you can move crazy fast. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you walked by the booth at NAFED, and we had a 20-minute conversation about why aren't we just doing this right now? Let's just make this happen. So
Right. Right. Yeah, no, yeah, I'll promo it. We'll talk about it later, but
yeah,
it was kind of crazy the way you were able to do that and send it to your developers quick to take a peek at some of our stuff. So,
yeah,
um,
definitely.
so I want to kind of start from the fire alarm. Uh, Obviously we have the fire alarm panel, we have the buildings, but
Mhm.
we have these fire alarm service providers out there,
Yep,
integrators, whatever you want to call them, contractors, whatever.
sure.
Um, what in your mind are the number one pain points for those service providers currently?
Yeah, I'll start with the labor side, because when I walk in, the first thing that we always talk about, the bit you and I had some banter as we started here, just going through the industry. It's, hey, do you know any technicians? And as OEMs of a product, we talk to a lot of contractors and we know a
Right,
lot of the technicians because of it. So I always try to offer, yeah, I know this guy, I know this guy, but ultimately, how do we fill as technology providers, how do we help fill the labor gap? Because as
right,
of right now, it's not an industry that someone jumps up and says, oh, I want to be a fire protection technician when I grow up. I want to do these inspections. And it has nothing to do with the quality of the industry. We're
right.
just not the best marketers around
No,
here. We need to get better at it. And we're a part of NAFED now. We're a part of some more organizations, the bigger that FireM gets, and the youth movements and learning how to attract some of these individuals. It's the more technology we have, in the industry, the more attraction we're going to have. So, with all this tech in place and the labor shortage, one of the things that we push on a lot is use our platform, use our abilities to help keep up with customer demand as these inspections and service come up more often. So you're making better decisions with less technicians, and you're more focused on the priorities in your day.
Yep.
Because historically, the signals that come from a fire alarm panel and the amount of data that comes out of them, long lists of information that are difficult to interpret. And for the service providers, for them to say, yep, I need to do this, this, and this, and this, they have to do that manually.
Right.
What we can help provide for that labor gap is more, hey, these are the recurring events, these are the most important events, and this is all done within the software from the information that we're getting from the panels. So
Yeah, you have to roll a truck, or you have to roll a truck to go out and troubleshoot the panel, right?
yeah,
And
yep.
what you're looking at is being able to do that remotely and then target what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done and roll the truck, obviously, if you need to at that point.
Yeah, definitely. So, and a lot of these panels, if they're just monitoring alarm, trouble, and supervisory, there's no information. Or
Right.
let's say the contact list for Central Station hasn't been updated in 5 years. We have projects we're working on right now where not only the information that's coming out of the panels and heading to Central Station is incorrect, but they're not looking for the right points to help diagnose the problems or give the information to the right people. So, like you said, they're rolling trucks, not just service providers, but they're rolling fire trucks. They're rolling
Yeah,
incident control before they know for sure that it is truly something um, that has to be acted on.
interesting. Um, so uh so I guess so labor obviously big pain point is and it is that it's in every industry, but especially in fire, and it has been prior to the pandemic as well. So
Mhm.
um anything else that is kind of bugging the service provider side that you can see other than just the labor side?
Yeah, FireM is not a panel manufacturer, right? And that's one of the things that we talk about a lot as a third party device. We don't make panels, we don't make devices. We are simply a data collection product. So when it comes to where we fill some gaps is if we have partners that aren't direct with every single panel manufacturer, we help them get a single login, right? They want to
Yeah.
see their entire portfolio of panels, and they don't want to log into this OEM's product and this OEM's product and this OEM's product. We can give that high level of rich information, but in one single place. Because there's nothing worse than going into a service manager's office and he's got 5 screens open over here and 5 screens open over here. He's like, I'm keeping tabs on all this, and the more
Yeah.
that we can condense as OEMs, and like you said, with software, right?
Yeah.
The goal is not to have 10 different places to get information or upload information or keep track of things. One database, one place, keep it all in a way that our operations can get more streamlined. And ultimately that's labor again, that's efficiency, that's all the things that we're going after here.
Yeah, and every manufacturer is a little bit different, even though the way it's installed and the way it's inspected is pretty much the same.
Yeah,
The
true.
panel manufacturers, and they also try to keep things proprietary, right? Which is also it's a there's a pro and con there. Obviously, if you have a certain distributorship, you're going to be locked in, but probably majority of the panels that you're doing in service and inspection on are not your proprietary or not your distribution, your normal distribution. So you're doing a variety of different panels that are out there in different locations. So
Yeah.
how do you do that at scale and manage that appropriately? And yeah, if you don't have logins to, whatever manufacturer panel, how do you do the inspection without having to to essentially redo every device on that entire system and log it.
Well, you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Is pen and paper is still the way that a lot of these event verifications on inspections get done, and even the way that it's then transmitted to customers. So speaking of Davis Ulmer, my first experience with inspections was a 3-part form. And I laugh about that now, but that was
Carbon copy?
Carbon copy, 3-part form. So that was 2012, 2013. And I know that, they have moved into a new, more modern version of inspections, but 50% of the industry is still using some form of Excel spreadsheet, carbon copy, and a lot of it is, manually interpreted. And that's the piece of it that we do a little bit differently than some of the other methods. Is if you're doing a 3-part form, that's one thing, but if you're taking events from a panel and then you yourself are interpreting an event and writing it down and then submitting it somewhere else, there's a bunch of cogs in that system that could be wrong. They could have some variation on the signal that was received. So no manual interpretation, keep things in essential repository, making sure that whatever comes out of that panel is exactly what needs to be shown for not only code requirement, but ultimately the longevity of that system as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. It totally makes sense. Now, is there anything in NFPA 72 that has changed to allow this? I guess my question.
Yeah,
And maybe before we get into that question,
sure.
I guess explain what the actual product is. Like, you guys aren't a panel manufacturer, but you say you're collecting data. How are you doing that?
Yep, absolutely. So we manufacture a edge gateway, and that edge gateway connects into the 232 port, or the old Princer port of the panel. And as the events come into that panel, we collect that information at the edge device. And because we're an edge device, we take it, we interpret it at the device, and then we transmit it via a cellular connection into the cloud. Yes, the cloud.
Gotcha.
Fun buzzword, right? But one of the reasons that we do it that way is we want to make sure that we can do it as quickly as possible. So because we're computing it at the site and sending it, you were by the booth within a couple seconds of me pulling a smoke detector off my demo kit there, we were getting notifications on our phone. And for us, speed is huge, because a lot of times if you don't have that quick notification blasted out to all the stakeholders in a building or stakeholders of that panel, every second counts. It used to be hours, it used to be minutes. Now we're talking about seconds of information right at your fingertips.
Right. Yeah. And then distributed to whoever, right?
Whoever. And that's a big piece of this. Is we do not charge, or our model does not charge for logins. If the end user agrees, of course, we're talking about data here, so this is an important piece to this. There has to be an agreement from that end user, or the building owner, or the property manager, whoever is truly responsible for the information in that panel. They have to sign off on who has access to the data within their panels. But as long as they're happy with the fire department, they're happy with their service provider, they're happy with even their jurisdiction, knowing the information, then we don't have a limitation on the login creation. Because ultimately, if someone leaves the company, Drew, tomorrow, the cool part about technology is we cut them off. Hey, let us know, delete it, they're gone. They have no access anymore, right? So we don't want to limit people to the information, but at the same time, the security of that information and the access that they have can be filtered, it can be customized to a point where if you don't want the information, you don't need to see it. But if you want all of it, you can have all of it.
Who owns it?
End user.
End user.
End user
So,
owns their data.
so the end user meaning the building owner?
Building owner, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, building owner owns their data. Our license agreements that we work with, in the events that an end user says, you know what, hey guys, this has been great, I'm no longer interested. It's just not something that's adding value to my business, and we're going to turn this off tomorrow. We are obligated by our end user license agreements to get rid of that information. So, we are, it's very important to us that while that information is within our system, that we keep it secure. But if that customer is no longer interested in having that housed,
Yeah, get it out.
yep, absolutely. And I had this question come up a couple of weeks ago. Where does the information go? Well, if what should be happening is the end user and the service provider have a conversation. Would you like your data? Would you like a copy of this? And if they say yes, then here you go. It's sent to you. We get rid of it on our end. But in the events that they say, I don't care, not interested. All right, clean wipe. Just like getting rid of your iPhone information, just erase.
Yeah, just erase it.
Yep.
So that's the current module, right? Where you have this little gateway, it's a little box essentially, right? Connects to the
Little
printer
box.
port.
Yep.
It's got a device that sends back via 4G or whatever it is, 5G, whatever the device is.
Yep. So cellular connection, capable to go up to 5G.
Okay. And I don't know if you could talk about it. So that one's fully installed. What if you wanted to bring one around with you?
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me.
We don't have to talk about it if you
No. We can. So ultimately what happens when I start to talk about our products, we call this the fixed piece. Okay.
Right.
So the fixed unit is very much end user centric, right? Because they're getting logins, they're getting user management, they're getting customization, they're keeping track of their inventory. There's an asset management piece of it. There's a whole bunch of things that the end user can do. But of course, we work with service providers, and service providers are excited at the prospect of having a mobile version of our product. So what I can say right now is it is part of the roadmap. What I can't say right now is how far we are, or release dates or anything like that. However, for all of you service providers and all of my OEMs that have come to me and said, I want this thing, we hear you, we understand, we know the pain points it's going to solve. So let the team do their magic, because the development side, I'll mention Brad Wilcox, our product manager. He's based out of Atlanta. Works his butt off for us, man. He's just an excellent part of our team, and it feels like every time I have some sort of an event, I come back and say, "Hey, Brad, they asked for it again." He goes, come on." So
I think every time I see you, I ask for it because I see the huge value in it. Because we didn't get into the pain points of the building owners.
yeah,
But a lot of it's a little similar. But
mhm.
your current version's mainly on the end user, the building owner side. I went straight to the service providers, which are similar pain points because
Yep.
they have to work for the building owner.
Sure, absolutely. The
Have
pain
different needs.
points on the fixed piece. There's and here's the positive side for us right now. The pain points we can solve for an end user, we also help the service providers do as well. Because ultimately, if you have a technician who doesn't show up for work, he's sick, he's on vacation, whatever it is, our goal is to provide as much information about that site as possible within the platform if they're out there to do an inspection or do service, so they don't have to walk in blind. We had, when I was at Davis Ulmer, we had a couple technicians that were the person that had to go to this site and this site and this site, because they knew the building, they knew where all the devices were, they knew how to get into that weird IT room because you needed an access card key, and they were friendly with the staff or whatever the reason. So our goal is to, if Joe doesn't show up for work or has to go on vacation, we need Ryan to come in and do work at this site. And, for us, not only could you have a senior technician back at the office helping that greener technician through that inspection, but they're able to manage multiple people from the office. If you're the service manager or senior tech, you could have 5 or 6 green technicians out in the fields that, hey, I'm not sure where this device is, or did I get that verification? Because we're all connected now,
Right.
we have the ability to help techs in the field way easier than, hey, I'll be there in an hour. I'll be there in 30 minutes.
Right.
We at Davis Ulmer, we had a senior technician, and I swear to this day, his phone does not stop ringing.
That's funny.
all into the night. And, with the right tools, hey, what are you looking at? He could go on his, okay, yep. Okay, I see this here. And really help those technicians instead of him, okay, 45 minutes here and an hour here and driving all over the place just to help solve some problems that if he had a better view, it'd be a little bit easier to manage those problems.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's going to solve a lot, I think, for the industry as people start adopting it. How has adoption been so far within the fire alarm community in North America?
Yeah, it's picked up quite a bit in the last couple of months. So, the first year, we're a startup, we're doing something new. I say technology, I say IoT. I scared a lot of people as I walked into the old friends from,
Yeah.
I've got a background with distributors, worked at FireTrace for a long time, had a lot of partners that I, got voice of customer from early on. And, the first few months were, okay, I get it. It's cool. It's a nice concept. But when we started to really get into the use cases and we solve this and we do that, and we got more specific on the problems that we were solving, that's really when the light bulb started to go off.
Right.
So, we're working on, some pretty nice partnerships. We'll display them at the show. I'm sure we'll
Cool.
talk about NFPA later. But Drew, from your perspective, I know we've been, chatting for, a little bit now as well, but a lot of the OEMs, not just panels, but software providers in different pieces of the industry are starting to understand what we can bring to their products as well. Because what we do is we're conduit. We take information from a panel and put it somewhere else. And we're that in between, that missing puzzle piece in the industry to help link everything together. So, early adoption was, hey, nice magic trick. What do I do with it? And now it's, oh, I have this one customer that has that problem. Can we talk about doing this at this site, in this site, in this site? So it's new technology. It was similar when I went on board at FireTrace, and we had, a couple products that they weren't listed or they were early in the process, and ultimately it's not required, right? And this is one of the things that we ran into all the time at FireTrace, and something we had to overcome is we had to sell that product. That's a product that has a clear value proposition for certain aspects of the industry, but because it's not required, it's not just something you quote. FireM is not something you quote. You're solving specific problems and providing a valued outcome for a service provider or a distributor, a service provider and end user, excuse me.
You gotta show them their pain when they might not even know it sometimes, right?
The biggest pain that I hear when someone gets requested, one of our distributors, like, can this panel send me a text message when there's a problem? And that's the most common thing that we get, because that's the tip of communication. That's the peak idea on how to get communication. What they don't realize is the text message that they're getting could do so much more. And, we showed off our product at NAFED this year. The mapping component, can you get a text message? You absolutely can. But you get a push notification that includes all the serial data from that panel, from that event, location, the device type, you click on that push notification, you get a full list of all those events that have occurred within your filter. You click on that event, you get a building floor plan. Hey, this is where it is in there, plotted location. So there's no more guesswork. It's
Yeah.
not a, hey, my favorite comment from customers is always, hey, my panel's beeping. That doesn't give me information. But
No.
what to give me something here. What does it say? And now they have something that they can clearly read on an interface, and they can communicate with that service provider.
Yeah, it's yeah, the push notification. Yeah, obviously you're making it the ease of use for the end user as well as the service provider are there. Yeah, I'm excited to see kind of how you guys grow and kind of what you release next, and obviously continued partnership too. So
Yeah.
on other IoT news or just items, what is there anything in the industry that you've seen? I mean, you guys are kind of an auxiliary piece to IoT
Mhm.
fire alarm. Is
Yep.
there any different manufacturers coming out with anything that's pretty interesting and I guess what's the trend in the manufacturer realm as well, and how I want to say how they compete against this, but how do they interact with this?
Yeah. Here's the cool part about software and IoT. We know that none of us can do it on our own.
Right.
And that's the overarching piece of where I see the industry going. So you're a software provider. We you had Travis from Fire Connect on
Yeah.
a couple podcasts ago. He and I are chatting back and forth about certain, different things and all that stuff. We know that we're good at certain snippets of the industry.
Wait, fire
So
alarm talks to fire pump? I didn't know that.
believe it or not, all of the
That's
signals
it's
within a
always
system
separate.
should be speaking. We should have information about every single piece of the system. And if we don't have the full breadth of information,
Yeah.
then we could be missing something, right?
Oh yeah.
So if we have, and I think about this from my suppression world of cross zoning, right? If I have one point that tells me something's going on, that's one point. If I have 2 and 3 and 4 points within a data set that tell me something is happening or could happen, then I feel more confident about whether it be the service, whether it's the actual emergency situation. We know and have more information about what is occurring. So, industry trend, we're all becoming friends.
Yeah.
And if you're not open to being a friend of an ecosystem, then you're going to have to do that tech stack all by yourself. And if
Oh
you want
yeah.
to do that tech stack all by yourself, you're not going to be good at something. You're going to eventually ask for this ecosystem's help, whether it be a FireM, whether it be an inspect point, or any of these other aspects of the industry. Because if the goal is to be excellent at everything, then customers are going to get upset because we're not experts in every little piece of this. So what you'll see at NFPA and what you'll see at our booth in particular is we're becoming friends with as many people as possible. We're getting really good at our aspect of what we're doing, but ultimately you can do this, you can do this. Let's bring it all together and have the end clients, and frankly, the big word compliance, as the number one goal for products in this ecosystem.
Yeah, I like the I put a list together of of our potential partners. It's interesting because coming from a manufacturer, uh there's a lot usually competition, right?
Mhm.
But even competition now, they're partners, right?
Yeah. Yep.
They're just co-petitors, it's everybody keeps saying. So uh
Co-petitors. Co-petitors.
co-petitors. Yeah, it's a Chris Logan Fire Sprinkler podcast tagline, and I've been using it lately and talked to some people at Honeywell. He liked that term as well.
Yeah, I like that.
So
That's good.
yeah. What let's get into NFPA. So next
Yeah.
week,
Yep.
Monday through Wednesday, what is it? This what are the dates? 16th and the 19th?
19,
19th to the
19 to
21st.
20. Yeah, 21st. Yeah, 21st.
So what booth number are you?
We are 442, like the Oldsmobile, Olds 442.
All right.
Brad Wilcox figured that out the moment he got that information. He's a big car guy, so
Put a
we bonded
request
over
in for that number, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he might have actually. That's
yeah,
something he would do.
that's funny. Anything to see there? You know, that I guess just stop by the booth, please, if you're obviously rolling through the expo.
Yep. At our booth, we will have our module. You'll be able to pull smoke detectors off. You'll be able to pull pull stations. Anyone who's never pulled a pull station before and wants to get that tactile feedback, they can do that. And we will have a real reporting panel sending information to a device at the show. So,
Nice.
we'll, of course, this is kind of unique. Our inventor of the product will be on our booth. Nathan Brown, who is the principal and president of BCA Engineering that works with our team, our LVX team in Australia, will be at the show. So,
Oh, great.
all the sales and marketing stuff, all the partnership things, that's for me. But we will be showing off a hand portable monitoring device as well. That will, speaking of ecosystem, something that we're going to be bringing into our line card here pretty shortly. But we will be able to show off the extinguisher monitoring products. We'll be able to show off our fire alarm monitoring products, and we'll be displaying some of the other OEM partnerships and distributorship.
Wait. Did you say extinguisher monitoring?
I might have.
Oh, wow.
Did I break that
Oh,
out? Did I break that out too early?
no, you're good. That's exciting. I know of NFPA 10 and it's in the code now for some monitoring there. It's just nobody's been able to scale it and make it cost effective. So
Yep.
it'd be really cool to see that.
So one of the things that we're doing early on is and I can say this out loud. I did get some permission. Is we'll have an Oval brand hand portable in our booth, and we'll be showing off how we can monitor an Oval brand hand portable. And as the industry knows, Oval is typically a healthcare product. It is a hospital. Solves a lot of problems and pain points within healthcare.
Right.
It's a premium brand. And it's a premium problem that needs a unique solution. So, where do we start? If I were to go after every hand portable and every, Pizza Hut or, wherever they are, it's just not going to fit.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to be something that a premium offering makes sense for in a budget. But in a healthcare facility where they need to know things are in place, we're going to be able to show off how we can monitor those high-end hand portables and bring them into an ecosystem of FireM.
Yeah, I'm intrigued on that. My mind's just starting to spin with joint commission and hospital and healthcare. So
yep. And there's a long way to go, Drew. There's a lot of things that have to be done to get us to a point where we can say, it's been accepted here, it's been accepted here. But ultimately for us, we're looking for voice of customer. We're looking for feedback. The long-range wireless community and the smart infrastructure community wants to show off all these fire products, but everyone's a little scared. Everybody doesn't want to go down the route of listings and letting that kill the excitement before it even starts. Right. So for us to come and show off something that is on its way, knowing that there are things that have to happen, we want to interact with the community. We want to get this feedback. So that's Nathan being in the booth, and for him to have that device there is going to be a good dialogue for anybody that wants to stop by and talk about the future of fire protection technology.
Yeah. Well, I'll send. Unfortunately, I'm not making it to the show, but I'll be sending my team over there to say hello and obviously take a photo or two, because I know I think at some point we'll have, an integration with you guys to be able to upload our fire alarm device. And I guess that potentially could move to the extinguisher side once we see that product, but to be able to pull that automatically from FireM and then just dump it right into Inspect Point. Yep,
absolutely. Having something where FireM's installed in a building, they're using Inspect Point as their software for their inspections and service. Hey, Inspect Point button, that's the goal. Hit the Inspect Point button, download it into your formats, and upload it into your platform.
Yeah, Pretty simple, but
Yeah.
it's a little more complicated than what you and I talked about.
Nah. We'll let the software guys deal with that.
Yeah, right.
That's the easy
Right.
stuff.
Well, let's yeah, excited for NFPA next week. Uh let's wrap this up. I do a set of quick response questions. So
Oh boy. Okay.
yeah, they're pretty simple. I'm only gonna do
Okay.
let's just do a couple. So
Sure.
I know you worked for um FireTrace as well
Yep.
as Davis Ulmer
I
on some
did.
of the spread. What is your favorite suppression system? Why? And a cool installation that you were involved with.
Mm, I'll wrap it all into one. And I have, unfortunately, I have a cookie cutter answer for this. Because I can't divulge a lot of names. That's part of fire protection. However, my favorite thing about working at FireTrace and some of the things that we do is how we enable things to be made. So when I was at FireTrace, we were on a lot of really unique manufacturing applications. And some of the places that I got to I was able to go in, help design, help prospect. We we had these operations managers say, we can run 10% harder because we have your system. And that helps them meet customer demands and make things that ultimately moved. And I can say the world forward. I mean, we had some really cool customers that did some pretty amazing things. So long answer, but I can't drop specific names. That's, a
You don't
lot.
have a favorite suppression system?
Favorite suppression system? I don't know. I would say my favorite suppression system. I'm looking towards the future a little bit, and
Okay.
there's some systems that are coming out in the future that can help solve some of the recharge problems. Okay.
Mm,
Hey, I had a dump, and all of a sudden, everything in my day turned into how do I get this thing refilled? The
right.
future systems that I have been in contact with and heard about are actually the bottles that are in place. We can recharge them on site from what's in the atmosphere. That's the cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's the
Filtering
coolest
the
thing for me.
air. Okay.
Yep. Because
I haven't heard. Yeah.
ultimately, if someone didn't have Novec or FN200 or whatever we were
Yeah.
doing, it was a
Shut down.
panic, right? It was a panic, and it shut down everything that we were doing that day, and we needed to find it so that they could take occupancy again. So
Okay.
that's my
Cool.
answer.
I like it. All right. Last one.
Okay.
You're a Buffalo guy. Have you been involved or have you seen a table smash yet?
Uh, so the Bills went from the AFL to the NFL in 1960. And my family has had season tickets since 1960. So I
Okay.
have not been involved in a table smash, but plenty have occurred at the tailgates around us. However, I'll say this, a quick plug for Bills Mafia. It started as a charity. That's what will always be, is a charity. And then it has moved into the how do I say this nicely? Um, it has turned into the social media explosion that it is now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, as long as the charity's in there, I think that's a good thing, right?
it is. Yeah, what they did for the Patricia Allen Fund, what happened when they broke the playoff droughts for Andy Dalton's charity and things like that. That's usually what I try to refocus people to
Right. Right.
when
Right.
things
Right.
happen. The DeMar Hamlin situation, there was a
Yep.
huge outcry for that as well. So yes,
That's cool.
we smash tables, but also
You
there's a
give
good
back.
piece to it as well. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Thanks again, Scott.
Yeah,
Looking
thanks,
forward
Drew.
to for your time next week. Do you want to give just a plug of where to find you at on social media, email, whatever, any contact info you guys have?
Yep, absolutely. We're very active on LinkedIn. That's our number one place. We have a newsletter you can subscribe to about driving compliance with IoT. We keep it as generic as possible, but of course, we're an IoT product, so a lot of it is focused around our capabilities and our partnerships. But LinkedIn is huge for myself as well, not just FireM, but also for me. And we're at booth 442. Please come by and see what all this new scary technology is all about.
Yeah, I appreciate the time again.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Appreciate you having
All
us
right.
on.
Yep. Take care.
Thanks.
This has been episode 49 of the Fire Protection Podcast powered by Inspect Point. I want to thank Scott MacRitchie again from FireM coming on the podcast, talking everything IoT in the fire alarm side and what they're doing and trying to transform the industry. Really cool to see where his background was from and what they're doing now to really transform fire protection and grab data out there and move on to the next level. So again, thanks again. See us both at NFPA this week. And yeah, we'll see you again here soon. Thanks.